Thank you, Chrissy, and good afternoon, everyone, and appreciate you taking the time to hear a little bit about Richmond Vanadium. This presentation is on the ASX, ticker code RVT, website richmondvanadium.com.au. Just do a quick corporate snapshot. Actually, before I'll do that, I'll start with, vanadium is lithium's younger brother, and we get the sense our parents love lithium a lot more than they love us, but ultimately vanadium's going to have its day in the sun, and I'm going to take you through why. So RVT listed in December 22, market cap at $90 million. We have 18 million cash in the bank, no debt, and fully funded through to our completion of the bankable feasibility study. Pretty tight capital structure and a small dedicated technical team really focused on delivering the bankable feasibility study by the December quarter 2024, along with the EIS and our environmental approvals. But before I talk a little bit about the project, I'd just like to go back to the vanadium market briefly. Alicia from TMT this morning did a great job setting the scene, so I'll just sort of give you a summary of where we see the market. So historically, supply 140,000 tonnes per annum, dominated by 4 countries: China, Russia, South Africa, and Brazil. Historic demand: spanners, rebar, specialty alloy steel, and that's made the lion's share of the supply and demand side. Into the future, where is this demand growth coming from? It's coming from the global adoption of the vanadium redox flow battery. You can see the graph on the right-hand side, and it's projected to grow over around that 20% mark, with the steel and alloy market ticking along at that 4 to 6% CAGR year on year. 10,000 tonnes of vanadium pentoxide is required for a 1 gigawatt hour battery system. In China, they are just installing a further 4.5 gigawatt hours as we speak. So if China is not a net importer now, they are soon going to be. So you've got this burgeoning demand. Look at the global, let's call it 5 terawatt hours of grid-scale battery storage required around the world. I think it's going to be higher than that. And if the vanadium redox flow battery was just 20% of that growth, we would need 10 million tonne of vanadium pentoxide product to feed into that market. So where is that coming from? Australia has the 3rd largest resources of vanadium in the world and the 2nd largest reserves of vanadium in the world. And you can probably guess how much we produce right now. None. I think it's about time for that to change, and we've got our peer group and 12 companies working very, very hard to actually make that a reality. So that's the supply-demand. Supply-demand down, demand is on its way up in a significant way. I'll just take you through a couple of these pickies. These are vanadium redox flow batteries. Top left-hand side is the Dalian Ronquet installation in the Dalian province, 800 megawatt hours, capable of powering 200,000 homes. So that is a large-scale battery. It is a liquid-state, stationary, large-scale battery system. It's complementary to lithium, not competitive to lithium, because ultimately when you drive your electric car home, you want to charge it from a microgrid that has renewable energy, taking power off the grid and stabilising grid power and powering those cars up with a vanadium system. Vanadium, you've probably heard a bit about it today from Alicia and others. We don't have any thermal runaway, which is a nice way of saying it doesn't catch fire. It has a very, very long life, over 20-25 years, and the electrolyte itself has an infinite life. It's a liquid-to-liquid state battery. Fully scalable, a full depth of discharge, and as you get into the larger scales, it's very, very cost competitive. So as I said, these are for energy transition, large grid-scale applications. That's where they are around the world. Over 240 now installed or in construction. I think Alicia again had a very good photo of the new battery system in just north of Port Pirie at Yadlamalka. It's an 8 megawatt hour vanadium flow battery. It does 2 things: stores renewable energy and takes power off the grid when it's cheap and puts it back on the grid at peak times. So it's a load leveller and improves grid efficiency. So these aren't experimental, they're not in the lab, they are in mainstream use around the world, and you can see the clusters of those installations, China, Europe, North America in particular. So the vision of RVT is not only to be starting to produce vanadium in this country, but to get down the supply chain to the battery. So up in North Queensland, we want to be mining, concentrating and producing HPV in Richmond and Townsville. Over the fence from our product should be electrolyte makers, and over the fence from them should be the battery makers. So this is the vision that's shared with the Queensland Government, putting a lot of effort in and a lot of capital in to bring this into a reality. And I was in Victoria last couple of days, and ultimately they were a building state. So I suggested, why isn't the Ford factory, the Holden factory, the Portland area repurposed to manufacture batteries and not send concentrate offshore and buy it back at 1,000 times the cost? So now a little bit about the project. As you saw on the map, we're halfway between Townsville and Mount Isa. We're on the major infrastructure corridor and the new copper string power corridor. So we have road, rail, and we have a very, very large JORC resource of 1.8 billion tonne. And as Chrissy pointed out, a reserve around 460 million tonne. So it's a very good address in the Julia Creek Richmond zone. In the vanadium world, concentrate grade is very important, probably the most important. So we have the scale, but our focus is to get our concentrate grade to as close to 2% as possible. Through our test work and pilot plant, we're achieving that. And that would put us up there with the best of them on the planet. A bit about the geology, and this is the simplicity. So we have scale and we also have the benefit of simplicity. This is a 4-kilometre cross-section of the ore body. It starts at 2 metres below the surface and it stops at 25. So this is a very shallow, easy to mine strip of enriched vanadium and not much else. So we're in very, very good flat cattle country, and we've got a mine reserve, as I said, 460 million tonne. The darker shape there is the starter pit, which has got 43 years of life at about 12,700 tonnes per annum production rate. And the greater area has got about 110 years of mine life. So we've got plenty there for our children and our great-grandchildren. Low strip ratio, progressive rehabilitation behind ourselves, so mining a green metal in a green way. A number of different types in Australia. You've got 3 ore types, the titano-magnetite guys in Western Australia and Northern Territory. You have a shale-based or a shale-hosted geology in the Julia Creek, Richmond area where we are, and you have an oxide. All of them have their challenges and all of them have their benefits, and they all need to get up if we're going to get this vanadium industry up and away. For us, we have the luxury of nature doing the oxidation for us, so we do not need to roast or mill, and the ore is free dig and very, very shallow. What we have to get right is to remove the calcium because calcium has a high impact on our operating costs with sulfuric acid, and we have to deal with very, very fine particle sizes, sub 50 micron. We spent 4.5 years in labs in Hunan, Beijing, where the expertise has been. And we've defined the flow sheet to concentrate, which is essentially physical separation, so screening, followed by flotation, followed by filtration and drying to generate that 2% concentrate, which is our target. So I spent a lot of work, we've proven the flow sheet. Once you're at concentrate, you're in a very simple acid leaching, acid ripening process, followed by solvent extraction, followed by deammoniation and final product at around 99% powder, which is battery grade product, and that is our target product. At the moment, there is another 20 tonne up there. There are 3 labs running confirmatory test work and full-scale pilot plant test work again, because we want to prove it again. And we're duplicating that test work in a lab called NAGROM in Perth to run in parallel with the Chinese work, just to make sure we're getting this right. This is the key, getting the processing pathway spot on. Hot off the press was some fantastic work done by our geology team, and they've identified within that narrow band that there is, sitting below a lower vanadium, higher calcium component, a much higher grade vanadium, much lower grade calcium. So we're doing some work on this. We've gone back and re-assayed every hole for calcium, and we're building a calcium vanadium distribution model, and this will allow us to selectively mine the higher vanadium, lower calcium material into a lower tonnage, which is going to be enormously beneficial for OPEX, particularly downstream. So there's more news coming out on that as we have a look through that distribution model. I won't talk to this slide. This is the PFS. What I will say is, with a lot of PFSs that are done in Australia, this economically told us to make a concentrate, chuck it on a ship and send it to Asia. There was a capital gap and a small operating capital difference. We don't want to do that, and we're working with state and government level to make sure that we can actually go down the complete supply chain in 5 steps: mine it, concentrate it, HPV, high purity vanadium production, electrolyte, batteries. This is an opportunity that we can do, and that'll be the focus and the prime directive of the BFS. And we've got a very, very supportive state government in Queensland, not only talking the talk, but committing serious money, including Copper String, which is a $5 billion investment. We're going downstream. We don't pretend to know everything about everything, so we're working with the first battery maker in Australia called Thorium Energy. You can see the battery there in the picture. Solar array, wind generators, batteries sitting underneath. These are going out into the remote areas of Western Australia and replacing diesel gensets. Running on telemetry, you don't have to drive out there, you don't have to refuel it if they haven't stolen the fuel, and maintain these things. So generators are going away, and these are going in, and there's an order book of at least 40 going on with them at the moment. So we want to grow them out of that kilowatt hour world into that megawatt hour world, and they have a specific licence for electrolyte, and as I said, they're making batteries. On ESG, we've adopted the World Economic Framework, and we're using Social Suite, one of our fantastic sponsors today, as our platform. We are the first vanadium company to be given coordinated project status, which is a fancy way of saying that Queensland is working with the federal government on getting us through our approvals. So December quarter 24 is when we'll have approvals, our mining lease approved, and our bankable fees into FID, and we're fully funded to get there. There's an enormous opportunity for regional economic growth, which is close to myself and our chairman's heart, Brendan Grills, and we're going to be working very, very hard on improving the socio-economic analysis so that we can actually make sure that these towns get reward from the minerals in which they came, and we're working with local, regional and state and federal governments on that. So if you've forgotten everything I said, take away 4 things. Vanadium market's on the move. The vanadium redox flow battery is real, fully adopted and commercialised across the world, and is now coming into Australia. Second one from Sumitomo, the battery's coming into North Queensland in the next 9 to 12 months, and go and have a look at the one in Spencer Energy's project. We've got a very large resource, so we don't have to worry about extension. We might be in the bathtub, but we're pushing through and getting that bankable feasibility study done. We're fully funded to get there. And I'll just leave you with this, essentially calling on the investment community to just have a look. Do some more homework on the supply-demand equation. Don't listen to me. Do some more homework on the battery tech, the cost comparisons, and where they fit in the grid-scale applications. And we're also calling on government for review of policy and to actually establish a downstream critical minerals fund. So we will be going to Canberra next month, and we're already working very, very closely with the Queensland government, and I know our friends in the WA are doing the same. We need to actually review policy. This can be a supply chain, this can be a value chain all the way to the end, which would be a refreshing change. If we don't seize the opportunity, someone else will. Thank you for your time.